In this session, we want to take a look at Resource Monitor. To access Resource Monitor, we want to click on Tools, Resource Monitor. Within the Resource Monitor console, you can see that we are able to check the performance of the CPU, the memory, the disk, and the network. So if you're running a Server 2012 or Server 2012 R2 operating system, you're able to check the performance of CPU, memory, disk, and network. These resources provide real-time information. You can't use them to check information that has happened in the past. Resource Monitor will only check your information that is happening currently. Let's look at the different tabs. We click on CPU. We want to expand that view. And you see for CPU, we can see the processes. You can see the ID, the description, the status, the number of threads that are running, the CPU, the percent of CPU consumption by the particular process, and the average percent of CPU consumption by the process. Gives you can see fluctuating the percent CPU usage being used and the frequency. Let's take a look at disk. And again, you have the process, you have the process ID, you have the file, you have the bytes per second, that's the read bytes, and the write bytes. You have the total bytes per second, you have the input and output priority, and you have the response time, which is the disk response time in milliseconds. So all of these things you can look at in real time with the Resource Monitor tool. What about our network? Let's click on network to see what we can view from the network view. And the network view shows you, again, the traffic, the address of the traffic. You have the network activity on a per process basis. And there you see we also have the destination address, the bits that were sent per second, the bits that are received per second, and the total bits per second. For memory, you can see here that we have 77% used physical memory. For the four main counters that we can look at in real time, see the statistics, we see the processes, we see the IDs, we see the description, we see the status. These would be the CPU, the memory, the disk, and the network. We can also look at each one of these components separately because we just looked at the overview. We can click on the CPU and we can see the processes, the ID description, the status, the threads. On memory, we can see that the memory shows us that we have 77% used physical memory. Also shows us the hardware reserved, in use, modify, standby, and free. For the disk, you can see the processes with the disk activities, the number of bytes are being read or written, the disk activity as it's going on currently. For network, We can see that we have network activity, TCP connections, and listening ports. And the network activity, let's expand that one. This view lists processes by name ID and gives you information on bits sent per second and bits received per second and total bits per second. You also have the TCP connections. Let's expand that one. And this view provides information on connections on the basis of local address port and remote address port. So we can see the headings here: local address, local port, remote address, remote port, package loss, and latency. So we're able to get lots of information about the performance of each component here from Resource Monitor. We also have the listening ports. Let's expand that one. And the listening ports list the ports and addresses that services and applications are listening on. It also provides information about the firewall status for these roles and features. To recap, the Resource Monitor tool allows you to monitor how your server uses CPU, uses memory, uses disk and network resources, and it gives you real-time information. This is the end of the session on Resource Monitor, and I want to thank you for listening.